Well, they wanted a hook. There was like, what's a pitch for the show? What's the concept? And the concept is like it's a sketch show, and there's one sketch, and then after that sketch is over, there's another one. Yeah. But that doesn't pitch real well in the room.
Everybody, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And this is going to be the weird one to start off with, and it feels weird saying it now since you do look different now, Todd, than I would say. But in the film, I wanted to ask when you started transitioning into Ian McKay.
Well, that's actually a really long and involved process because I live in Korea now. There's a lot of plastic surgery, and quite honestly, I was going for Michael Jackson. But
I just want to tip our hat that you opened our interview with a Fugazi joke,
question,
which is like,
that's very punk.
You did your research. You did your research.
I am a fan. I was there ahead of time. You know what? It was the hat. You know, like I just saw it and I'm like, he's kind of looking like Ian.
We thought you guys were geeks, but you're a fucking geek.
I'm the pathetic, really super pathetic one. But look, talking about punk then in general though, because it is in a lot of ways that the state itself was kind of like a punk rock version of doing the sketch comedy. Did it feel that way to yourselves in so doing it?
Yeah, we thought we were really cool. I mean, we sort of started out of the gate with this anti-establishment mentality, and I think it's possibly because, speaking for myself, you're coming from high school and feeling like I don't necessarily fit in here, and then you find this band of weirdos that kind of all felt that way, I think. And when we found each other, we were like, oh yeah, well then fuck the system. We're gonna make comedy that's different. Yeah. I don't know how different it was, but we felt like we were really breaking some new ground.
Nobody asked for the Sex Pistols. They got the Sex Pistols. Nobody asked for the state. But they got the state.
And we're still here.
And we're not going anywhere.
Well, that's not true.
I have reservations.
I have to be somewhere. Yeah, I have to be
I'm going to see
nowhere
Glenn
to
Ross.
Yeah.
Weird thing is, I did ask for big audio dynamite.
And yet you never got him. And instead, you got an InXS cover band.
Is there something, though, in doing all of that where, like, because again, it's like, you guys sold yourselves more than anything else compared to, you know, somebody came searching and found you. So in doing it, it's like, you didn't have necessarily the same kind of mentorship, let's say, as maybe some other places had or some other people did. Did that feel freeing, or was there parts of you now, looking back on it, that maybe said, like, I wish somebody would have told me I can end this sketch now, or keep going long, or whatever it may be?
There were so many people with opinions in the room already. Anybody else would have been a problem. And we were very hard on ourselves, like very, very hard on yourselves. If you see the documentary, you'll catch the vibe of how difficult it was to actually get anything produced through this group of 10 people or 11 people. To have added more people to it would have been, I think, problematic.
Right, and a big thing about the group is, for better or for worse, the stuff that we're doing is not copying too much stuff. It may be a little bit of Monty Python, but for the most part, the biggest killer of anything in the group would be us doing something that felt like it had been covered by anybody. You know, which is why you end up, if you look at like the tour, which ends up being somewhat of a greatest hits, most of the sketches are fucking crazy. There's the balls dipping guy or the froggy. Like, none of it is, the hits are never what the hits you would think the hits would be. The hits are the all B-sides.
We were policing each other, and we were all the inmates.
I want to dip my balls in it!
Well, in doing that as well, then, when it came to writing sketches, you know, clearly there's a lot of voices in the room. Are there things that were like, certain ideas came in your head and like, I gotta fit it in? My thought process is specifically the idea of Ben as Henry Rollins, doing the Rollins band joke in one of the, I think it was Power Priest when it was doing it. It was like something I had to get that in somewhere, or it just, we're writing it and it happens.
A lot of times we're just fitting things in based off what we can achieve. Or like if Ben takes his shirt off, that seems fairly like a Henry Rollins joke. We also used him as Flea a couple of times too.
And Ken Marino as Slash, same thing. It's just he puts the hat in the wig on.
We're just trying to use some stuff that, like, what's the cheapest version of something we can cut? Almost always we're thinking, what is the cheapest version of something we can cut to quickly?
Right, it's exactly.
That's always what we're thinking.
It's the same as like putting the show on in your backyard. Of like, we have this wig and this hat, so we should do that.
What can we do with it?
Right. We can do. I got a barn.
It's like, I think when you talk about sketch comedy, everybody would, even if it's not Monty Python, they're going to bring up Monty Python in some sense. But what I found interesting is, and I think somebody in the documentary maybe said the opposite of my thought process, but it was more of a lot of non sequitur. You weren't trying to weave a lot of sketches early on specifically into each other. Is that something that was also like, that's like kind of like our aesthetic of going against what's normally out there?
Well, it's 5 o'clock. Time to punch out.
For sure. MTV wanted, in the beginning, they were like, what's the conceit of this? You know, are we, popping out of a trunk in an alley and we happen to have some costumes and we're putting on a show?
Were you doing Godspell?
The conceit of Saturday Night Live was simple. It's live, right? So what is your thing? What's your hook? And we were like, where are the hook? I don't know.
Right. Well, that
What
is
is
funny.
a
Is like they wanted a hook. There was like, what's a pitch for the show? What's the concept? And the concept is like it's a sketch show, and there's one sketch, and then after that sketch is over, there's another one. Yeah. But that doesn't pitch real well in the room.
But I also it's like the idea that State is the only sketch show I can think of that never overstayed its welcome with the sketches. They always ended when they had to end. You didn't like push it forward. But I think a lot of people watching it will probably go, "Oh, that's the MTV ADHD generation kind of thing." When it didn't seem like that at all.
Not at all.
No, that's very
was
much
us.
how we feel. Yeah, we were definitely specifically reacting to a world where at that era SNL sketches were drifting into 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes, and that is for us. Or if our show was 22 minutes, so that'd be half of our show would be one SNL sketch. At the time.
And attention span. Our attention span.
Yeah, ours.
As a group.
So 11 people would just lose focus and the sketch be over.
Then again, for us as viewers, I know the reviews came out and they said one thing, but I remember, like, the State was like the high school water cooler talk. Like that was, I would go back into class and everybody would be talking about everything. So like to us, it didn't feel that way. Do you notice now, can you see the fingerprints you put on in like maybe there's like 3 different like projects, whether they be shows or movies, where like I can just feel my imprint was there?
Lots of people, Andy Samberg has talked about it. Key and Peele have said in multiple interviews, and to us personally, this is why I do this. This was, this was the spark. And so I mean, I'm sure they have many influences, but the State is, something that was happening at the right time in their creative young brains. And I do hear people say that a lot. You informed my sense of humor. I mean, what could be a better compliment than that, really?
I do have to say, I know Joe's not here with us as well, but Thomas, you are, of course, and Carrie, you are.
And Joe and I look very much. A lot of people can't tell me and Joe apart.
My favorite thing in the world is Sideways House to this day.
Thank you so much. I'm real proud of Sideways House, and I want to give a special shout out because there was a lot of our show that was not possible without 3 specific people: Eileen Katz, Doug Herzog, Jim Sharp specifically, Teddy Shapiro, but then also Ruth Ammon.
Yeah, Ruth.
Yeah.
Ruth. Shout out to Ruth.
Ammon built that. So
She built that set with $4.
I had pitched that sketch, and I was just like, so it's just a sitcom. It's going to have a jingle, and but literally it has to be built completely on its side. Oh, and when I fell through the door into the house, and I say I'm home on the first take, you can see it. Hi, I'm home. Ow! The reason I'm so upset in the take is I think I chipped the inside of my ankle on the wall. So I fell through the door, and it was totally fine, except that I missed it a little bit, and I chipped just that tiny little bone on the inside of your ankle. So I'm also like, there's real tears pouring down my face in Sideways House.
If you guys can pass along for me to Joe, because the fact that he is just in that position, twisted and not moving the entire time, is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
With his
It's
ass
why-
up in the air.
It's actually why he's not here today.
Yeah.
He's having extensive surgery.
My
way
mother,
too late.
it's really weird because Ruth built that beautiful set on its side. My mother, who is a hoarder, thought that's about our house and something like that. Yeah.
She took it personal.
She took it really personal.
How could you do that?
She was not thrilled about the
Why are you
Sideways
airing
House
our
fan.
laundry in this
It's
TV
almost
show?
verbatim how the conversation went.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Fabulous to have you all here.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's not often enough that an interviewee thanks the interviewer for their time.
No, very rare, and I do
about
appreciate
time
it.
we
yeah.
do it.
Matt, you guys, do you guys overlap when you were at NYU? Is that how you got involved in doing with this film, or?
No, so I was. I think the first season came out. I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
And I was just a huge fan. And like when I got to NYU, like they would show us the shorts, like that these guys had made, like the waiters and like these things, like that were like, you could be the State. like these guys came from NYU, but they were also a huge part of why I wanted to go to NYU, because I was watching them on MTV and was like, they're doing the thing that I want to do with my life. So it was I ended up dropping out of NYU, like he did, but.
Did you also drop out to be a Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Not to be a Mutant Ninja Turtle. I dropped out just because I was like, I don't know. I was super young. I don't recommend dropping out of college, but it was the right path for me. And but yeah, so there was no overlap. But it was like they were like it was like this dream. Like, oh my God, if you do well here at NYU, you could become like the state and have your own show and create your own things. And it was something we all talked about. Adam Goldberg, who is my good friend who produced the movie with me, also like,
Jewish.
Yeah. He basically, we were talking about it. We were like, the day one of NYU, they would show us the films and be like, you could be like these guys if you work your ass off.
So weird because they didn't give us any support while we were there.
I know. I'm not even considered an alumnus. I'm only considered an alumnus like when they want money. But yeah,
They should at least give us a discount if we send our kids there.
I agree.
Everybody listening to NYU, get on that. The film opens up with you guys talking about New York at that time, which was a different place than where New York is kind of now. You know, and I don't want to say just gentrified as a general term, but we'll use that as the term. But we are today in a section of New York that is probably closest, maybe, to what it used to be like. How much of the atmosphere at that time did influence what the comedy came out of it, or was it just you and that in general, and that's all that mattered?
I think that the environment was huge. For me, we were all living around NYU, which was Greenwich Village, and I was inspired by the history of Greenwich Village and the countercultural excitement that was definitely waning away at that time. But
Well, Bob Dylan was still playing in Washington Square Park when we were there.
we used to go see Bill Cosby at the Bitter End every Saturday night, and that was so
Kerouac
great.
would hold court at Cafe Reggio, and we just were so inspired by the beats.
Yeah, Allen Ginsberg would have beard shaving competitions and everything like that.
Yeah.
Trim that out. Yeah, that's how it's
And
rolling.
by the way, thank you for taking the time to ask that question.
I just wanted to say thank you as well because.
Oh yes, thank you. Thank you, Nick, as well for being here.
Ken, can I just pause for a moment and thank you? Just because you've just been so courteous, and I don't feel like courteous people get enough credit, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I feel like people don't get enough credit for acknowledging courtesy like Mike just did with Ken. So thank you for that.
Bravo to you, Mike.
Oh, please.
I'm also obsessed with the idea that you guys never tried to draw out your sketches too long. And if they were a certain length, it was for a reason. I think the one I think about the most is, I wouldn't know what the title was at this point, but where it's like the group making fun of Joe because you think that he goes home and has sex with his grandmother. And you have to play that out.
Grandma's potato chowder.
And you have to play that along because people start to think that the joke is them just making fun of him, to the point is if it goes too short and then he goes like, no, that's what I do, it's not going to be as funny. But were there certain parts of your psyche that were going like, let's just cut this, this is too long, let's cut it, or did it just, what came out?
Listen, yes, I go to my grandma's and eat soup, and yes, then I have sex with her.
I think it's partly because we came up as a sketch group made up of a lot of us were film students at NYU. It wasn't an improv group, and we were as much about like making film little shorts as we were about creating sketches on stage. We were into both, but I think that was part of the sensibility.
It was also a time when we were very aware of SNL, obviously, and particularly in that moment when we were sort of coming up, they had sort of gotten very lazy, and a lot of their sketches would go on forever and would just be a repetition of catchphrases. And so we very deliberately were like, let's get in, get the joke, and get out as quickly as possible so that it never feels bloated, so that it always feels like it's moving, it's chugging along.
A lot of people love your stuff when it comes out, but then there are audiences that finding it a little later on. Do you feel that fingerprint, that mark, can you see it in other forms of media? And you're like, if I didn't do this, not to say that this wouldn't be here, but I can tell that my fingerprint was on it.
Definitely. I mean, we talk about it in the film. I mean, I think that's a huge part of what was so important in me wanting to make this film was I knew the influence it had on my life, but I think a lot of, everyone knows members of this group, but they don't necessarily know where it all started. Yeah. And that it all started with this, with the new group at first and then the state. And we talk about it. I mean, Lonely Island, Andy Samberg talks about it, and we use a clip of it in the film where he's like, we were watching what those guys were doing, and that heavily influenced what they wanted to do. So I think it's pretty undeniable, the influence that they had on comedy and future generations.
I hear that, and that's very nice to hear. I look at our stuff and I think about, like, we did stuff that we thought that we wanted to make each other laugh. So that was our goal, is to do stuff that we thought was funny. And then once we put it out there, as years passed, I feel like I did see more and more things that sort of felt like variations of stuff we did. Did that have something to do with us? I don't know, because I don't think enough people saw it. But I think things were shifting comedically, and we just happened to be a part of that. But it is nice, like as time went on, it was nice to see, like I started enjoying comedy more from other people, and being aware of, like, and that just could have been because I was getting older and I was more aware of it and watching it more, because when we were at college, we were insulated. We were like just with each other, just talking about comedy and comedy theory and what works. And so for me, I don't feel comfortable saying this.
In my mind, though, we benefited from being a large group that largely had a certain insularity to it, and we were teaching each other and being influenced by each other as much as anything from the outside or from the past. And I think that, in retrospect, was a reason why the voice of the group had a certain unique quality.
Well, thank you all for your time.
And we mentioned this before, but just to underline it, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for everybody's time.
Sure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And David, thank you for thanking him.